My name is Modupe Olafeso Olateju, and I work with the Education Partnership Centre. We are very passionate about partnerships in the education sector and always seeking opportunities to build collaboration within the education sector. I agree that there are several challenges within Nigeria's education sector and indeed the system in which we operate. Not least of all are challenges with children having access to school. When they do have access and they are able to go to school, there are issues around the quality of education that they receive. And even when they're privileged to go to school and complete a course of education, there are challenges with them accessing sustainable livelihoods afterwards. So there are different levels of challenges. Our own recommendation to the government is usually around the idea of partnership. We believe that there are so many benefits to be derived by collaborating with the non state sector. The non state sector brings a level of innovation and creativity that is very difficult to find embedded in a lot of government systems. We think that opening the doors to the private sector for dialogue, for co creation, for collaboration, we think that this ultimately yields benefits. We've seen it work in other contexts. We've seen it work in different states, across the country. We think that there are significant opportunities for a systemic approach to partnership with the non-state sector, especially the corporations. I think even according to the United Nations, the Convention on Human Rights, I believe very strongly that education is defined within the context of both a public and a private concern. And so when you send a child to a public school as a parent, the child is going to a government school. However, you as a parent are also contributing some resources to enable that child actually be able to go to school. You're contributing the opportunity cost of that child doing something else. So there's definitely a financial contribution and a non-financial contribution, even on the part of parents, when they send children to government schools. So government, I think education, by its very nature, is both a public and a private concern. So it is not possible for the institution of government to have all the answers, as it is, not possible for the private sector to have all the answers. I think collaboration continues to be a very important thing to do. I think that we have to be realistic as a country. I think we have to look at what our budgets are and what our policy priorities are, and then determine where to channel resources. And so when it comes to basic education, for example, as enshrined within the Universal Basic Education Law of 2004, every child is entitled, to compulsory basic education for the first 9 years of their lives. And so I don't think that it is too much to ask that any government be able to supply, good quality education to their citizens, at least for the first 9 years, and also early childhood, so perhaps for the first 10 years of their schooling. Afterwards, it then becomes a bit more difficult to afford the costs, of education. But again, what other countries have done is they have made cheap finances and cheap loans available, to students, particularly at the tertiary institution, which are then repayable over a course of time. I think that it's really important for us not to continue to put up barriers to people accessing education. There's a wealth of data that suggests that as young people ascend the educational ladder, the returns to schooling become greater, not just for the individual, but even societally. So there is definitely a strong, even economic argument, for investing in young people being able to get as much education as they possibly can.